Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. I am behind the steel curtain co-editor Dave Schofield, coming at you with a much different feel for the first time during the 2020 season. I am here. It is not a Victory Tuesday, and I'm here, as always, with my big brother Rich. Rich, how you doing tonight?
Well, we don't get to breathe in the sweet smell of victory.
No.
And as I told you before we came on, I put all the blame on Wang Harbs.
On Wang Harbs.
It's all his fault because we had to play the Ravens so late last week that we actually played 2 games before you and I got to come back on the air.
Yes, together. You did jump in and say hey and actually you filled in quite nicely for me on the post-game show last Wednesday, because I ended up having to write that horrible article about one Alvin Bud Dupree. And you filled in for me while I had to step out. I had to duck in to answer a question for Jeff at 1 second. I don't even remember what that was.
Funny. It was a stat that he was like, I bet they will have it. And you, of course, did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did hop on to that show, and I did breathe in the sweet smell of victory. But between breathing in the sweet smell of victory, the other thing we were missing going into the game with the football team was I did not get to end the show with a can't wait. So,
I'll be honest with you. I screwed it up too.
It's all blamed on
Wang Harbs.
Yeah.
Who is in an interesting battle there with the Dallas Cowboys. I can say that now because we are live on YouTube and Facebook on Tuesday, slightly after 9 p.m. If you're listening to this in audio form, you're listening to it on Wednesday, so you already know what's going on, perhaps with the game that's happening Tuesday. But I might give some updates with it here as we go. We're going to get into a bunch of different feelings about this, but I got to tell you how it was partially my fault. The game is over. First of all, these weekday non-primetime games, killing me. I mean, I'm trying to make dinner for the family and have it ready before kickoff. I'm trying to get everything going on. I'm juggling. I had to write 2 articles during the game on what day is it? Today's Tuesday, on Monday. And for those you're like, oh, wow, boo-hoo. No, you don't understand. That's bad, because my responsibility of what I write during the game is when players leave because they're injured. You don't want me writing articles during the game.
Yeah.
You don't want me doing that, because that's my number one thing that I do. And I had to write 2 this time. I had to write Spillane. I had to write Nelson. Didn't get to write the one last Wednesday on Dupree because it happened so close to the end of the game. We waited for
you didn't mean Nelson. You meant Hayden.
No, that's right. Nelson was already out. We'll get there. We'll talk about that. But yeah, but another thing I did, because I was just off, I didn't get to my normal watching spot until the 4th quarter. And after the game was over, I looked down and I was not wearing my game socks.
Oh, so it is your fault. Good.
I was not wearing I can't call them the Bumblebee socks, because I had Bumblebee socks that were the gold with the black stripes, but I also bought inverted Bumblebee socks, and that's what I wear with the Color Rush, which are black socks with the gold stripes, which you're saying, how do you tell the difference? It's what color they are across the foot, bottom line. And I've put them on later in the game during the season and everything, and it's been fine. But I looked down and I didn't have them on the whole time. So just one of those things. It's really tough, because you kept having the feeling the whole game. We're just going to dive in. And before we do, let's bring up the topic of the show. Got to bring up the topic of the show, because we're going to talk about this all the time. And that is, the Steelers were stacking too many problems to overcome. They had too many problems going on to overcome. They can have multiple problems and still win a game. But if you have too many problems, then you're not going to overcome. And we're going to get into those. So we're kind of going to get into them as we go, as we kind of sum this up. And then we'll turn the corner into week 14 and see how the Steelers cannot stack these same problems. So you got the feeling early on in this game. When I say early on, I mean in the second half, much earlier than I did, that this was not going to work for the Steelers. It was just, you had that feeling.
It was almost funny because, of course, I watched the post-game show last night after everything was said and done. And I have to say that I 100% totally agreed with one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman that where the turning point in the game was.
Mm-hmm.
And the turning point in that game was coming out of halftime. Steelers get them third, and I think it was 14 or something.
It was
like
over
that.
10, 14, 16, something like that.
I guess it was 16.
Yeah.
And they threw a quick little bubble screen pass. Now, Mike Hilton had been jumping those and making the play all night, but this one, he did get around the blocker and jumped around, but to get around the blocker, he did not have a great angle to make the tackle, could only get a hold of him with his arms, and the guy broke the arm tackle, and then nobody was there to tackle the guy for 20 yards.
Yep. That play changed everything. If they hold them on 3 and out that first series coming out, it completely changes everything. They end up going down and getting a touchdown.
Yep.
So, but still, there was a lot of things. And I started to write an article today. I ended up, my goodness, I woke up this morning. I blame it on the Steelers. I woke up this morning, had a little bit of a headache that grew into such a migraine that I was worried about losing my breakfast and then my lunch. But I was able to shake it eventually. I started an article. I'm hoping I finish it at some point, but didn't do it to run today. Just kind of brought all some various things together about how this was kind of almost like a perfect storm of various things happening. And you look at a number of different things and you're like, well, if that wouldn't have, there was a lot of things that wasn't that kind of all compiled into this very close loss.
Yes.
And I mean, and it's not that everything was bad out of this game. You know, the Steelers extended the sack streak. The Steelers ended the football team sack streak. They were at 23 straight games, and they held them from getting to Ben. And Ben held on to the ball a few times and still didn't get that one time. He just stepped to the side, let him go, came right back up, ready to throw.
Oh, no. Wasn't just step to the side.
Yeah.
He spun.
Oh, that's right. It was
spun out to the left.
But I'll be honest with you, this is the first time I didn't. I'll usually after a game, if the game's on, I'll tape it. I'll try to rewatch it. But the one thing that I'll always do the night of a game is I'll go in on Steelers.com and look at their highlights, and I'll watch those over and over. At least the biggest plays. Not once. Didn't want to see any highlights. Just didn't want to do it last night. So you're right. I can say that now because I didn't see it multiple times to think about him spinning on that one.
Yeah.
But some of the things that happened with the Steelers. Okay. 1, they left points on the board. Now you can easily say they left that 5 shots from the 1 yard line and didn't get it on the board.
I don't say that though.
But I don't either because they held them to only gain in maybe 5 yards, forced a punt, got the ball at the 50 and scored a touchdown on the next play.
Yeah.
So they don't get the ball at the 50-yard line if they score a touchdown. So a lot of that would have been different, but who's to say they get the ball further back and they can then take that next drive and maybe even get a field goal or something out of it. They could have possibly still got more points. They did nothing with the ball when they got it with their last possession of the half. I mean, they 3 and outed it. And
that's
that one hurt. But the thing is, you're like, oh, so they didn't score points there. That's no big deal. The defense is still doing a great job. That's what I kept thinking in my mind. When they were leaving points, they didn't do anything their first drive the second half. The defense is still doing a great job. Even when it was 14-10, even when it was 17-10, the defense is doing great. So they left some points on the board. But the other thing that was the perfect storm is they were playing a really good defense.
Yeah.
They were playing a really good defense, which meant that it wasn't going to be, this game's getting close again. We need to go back and just do our thing. They're playing a good defense. That was another thing that was a perfect storm. Then the short week added several things that added up to this perfect storm. One, and you heard Chase Young say it after the game, Baltimore exposed some things and we were able to take advantage of it. Do you want to know why you were able to take advantage of it? Because after you had already had your 6 days off, there was, you still had another 5 days to prepare for that after your 6 days off, while the Steelers didn't have time to basically change anything offensively between the Ravens game and the game against the football team. Why? Because Ben Roethlisberger didn't practice. They felt a rested Ben Roethlisberger was more important than making some big corrections of things that got exposed against Baltimore. They didn't, and now I'm not saying it was the right move, or I'm not saying they shouldn't have tried to maybe do these things. Maybe they took their offensive scheme for granted that, Washington, I'm sorry, maybe not in the secondary, but overall, I think Washington's a better defense because that defensive front
their front seven,
is scary.
Their front seven's definitely better than Baltimore's front seven.
And they're giving the Steelers a run for their money.
The Baltimore secondary is better than the football team's secondary, but not by far enough that I wouldn't think that Washington overall defensively is a better team.
Yes. So, and that was kind of a perfect storm with that. And the offense was leaving points on the table, in my opinion, that they really needed for their defense, because I just felt the defense ran out of gas. Two big things happened to this defense. I felt they ran out of gas, and the injuries got to be too many. The Steven Nelson not playing, they could overcome the loss of one starting corner. They were doing that just fine. But having neither of them out there when Joe Hayden went out with the concussion, that was a problem. That was too much. It's kind of like I don't even want to say it. No, when Stephon, we'll do this one because I don't want to hit another
don't do that.
Group, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But when Stephon Tuitt was out, if there would have been a problem where someone else went out, that would have been an issue. I've said it about the wide receivers. Like when Deontay Johnson was out, they can handle the loss of one. It's when you get to be more than one that it's a problem. Same with the corners. They handled the loss of one, but when you had both of them, you definitely had a problem. You can't underestimate, shockingly, how much Robert Spillane has come in and not had a huge drop-off from Devin Bush.
Yeah, I know.
But there was a huge drop off from Robert Spillane, in my opinion. We're going to see if that played into some things. Jeffrey and I are working on a vertex about the running back getting so many receiving yards. I'm going to throw out the stats and everything. Jeffrey's still breaking down the film to come up with our conclusion there. So to me, that was kind of a perfect storm.
I got my own conclusion. I don't want to say it's necessarily just about the running back, but just about when we had the injuries and the defense went. Keith Butler got very vanilla and conservative
in trying to cover for the loss of players.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what happens when multiple guys go out injured. That's what happens when you're missing two starting corners, and you're still trying to get Alex Highsmith into the stuff and everything for Bud Dupree, who I thought some people were like, Highsmith is no Dupree. I thought Highsmith played well. My goodness, that one time he was rushing the passer. The pass went out wide. He goes out and gets the guy. Yeah. He goes out and gets fantastic. The guy.
Now,
I'm like, yeah.
Highsmith is not Dupree yet.
Yeah.
And I put that down with a yet. Okay. Yeah. He would be closer had we had a regular off season and regular training camp.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to learn a couple of edge rushing moves from either the coaches, but preferably I'd like to see him learn them from one Mr. TJ Watt.
Trent Jordan.
Because the one thing you always saw Dupree and Watt do to get the edge that I didn't see Highsmith do it all last night was the shoulder dip.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's done it before. I've seen it because I think
it last night. Now,
broke it down that he did it wasn't yesterday, but it was another time. I wonder if he was worried that they were going to see the shoulder dip. I don't know if you're talking about the rip rather than the swim, or just the flat up. I'd have to look at it specifically. I think he's going to be fine. But at the same time, you're adjusting to a guy starting his first game.
I will tell you one thing where he is more like TJ than Bud is, and that's in the straight strength in his bull rush. He was pushing that left tackle right back into Alex Smith several times. I thought that I was just like, whoa, he's a little stronger than what I thought he was. So, but we got to a point where I just feel like when guys got injured, we dropped back into our 2 deep zone and
played it safe to try to give them the best chance to do what they do, which I can see it, but at the same time,
it didn't work.
It's difficult. So it was one of those, to me, perfect storms of the offense couldn't get going more because Washington knew what they were going to do, and they didn't have time to put in a whole new game plan or too much of a tweak of the game plan in between. So they took advantage of that. I think I said it in my By the Numbers article, the defense, the offense was only on the field for just over 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. The defense was out there for almost 10 minutes.
Hey, I also just want to make one more thing on here because folks, I don't know if they're really kind of getting, but they're like, oh no, Highsmith's great. Hey, people need to remember when we made this pick, and there were a lot of people out there that weren't real fond of the pick. I loved the pick.
Yeah.
I thought I knew when we drafted him that we had another future good athletic, high motor outside linebacker coming our way. Yeah. So,
and I'm going to say too, we're not saying, and I don't even think that Butler changed the defense, went vanilla because of Highsmith, but it's the stacking. It's the stacking. Highsmith's in his first start. Spillane's out, so you're filling in with.
I think it was more when. I think it got the worst when Joe Hayden went out, and we were then thin at corner.
I think,
and we were staying in base defense and playing that zone, and that left our linebackers matched up on that running back.
But there was also times where you saw both Williams and Williamson on the sideline. They were running, with Marcus Allen, and I'm not sure if I saw Brooks out there or not. I'd have to go back and look at this at the snap counts and things like that. So, but to me, it was if they went vanilla, it wasn't because of Highsmith, it wasn't because Spillane, it wasn't because of Nelson, it wasn't because of Hayden, it was because of all of them.
Yeah,
it's because of all of those things. So here we got a super chat from Isaac Aguilera, $5. It says, past 2 games I've had to listen to the game because I was working. But can the Steelers go back to I formation and run and throw out of it? Something new? You want to know the truth? No. I don't think so. I don't think they're built that way. Their offensive line's not built that way. I keep saying I want to see them put their hands in the dirt and push, but when they get a chance to put their hands in the dirt and push, they don't. Yeah. Ben's not that kind of quarterback anymore.
Nope. Ben
I would love to see it. I just,
Ben doesn't like to take the ball from under center anymore.
Yeah.
He likes to be able to sit back and shotgun. He feels he can read the defenses better.
Yeah. That's basically what it's come down to is you obviously have to change and go to the strength of what your personnel is. That's what you have to do. I talked about it last year with Randy Land and how I told the story of my last 2 years coaching. I was the head coach in high school football, but I was head coaching in the lower down the program. I was head coaching the freshman team. And I was also the offensive coordinator. My next to last year, we were I formation power run team. We had a great running back. I had some big boy linemen, and we were just handing the ball off and running it down people's throats. Loved it. Came out to run our same offense the next year. Had limited practice time because that was the way the program ran at the time. I don't know why they wouldn't let their freshmen come in when everyone was allowed to, but that's beside the point. And was trying to implement the same thing. I was halfway through the first half of the first game. I turned to my assistant coach and says, I can't run a single play on this play sheet. I said, they just can't do it. They can't do it. I had small, inexperienced linemen. I didn't have a bruising running back. Definitely didn't have a fullback. And but I had a great quarterback and good receivers. So you know what we did? We went shotgun spread from that point on and had a pretty decent season because that's what our personnel was. And it's kind of the same thing now. As much as we'd love to, as much as we wanted to see the Steelers get the run game going, that's not the way they're built. And like I said, I feel that that's a mistake to not be built that way? Sure. But they also built a really great defense and have some really great wide receivers. And it's really tough to have it all. What do you think?
I was watching the game before we came on, okay? Mm-hmm. And I think it was Dobbins' first carry for that purple team tonight. They hand it off. He goes kind of to the right side, and he gets a run. I think it was like 14, 15 yards, okay? Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, first I thought, man, I can hear it now. People are screaming, see, we could have had that with the Steelers. We could have had that with the Steelers. Wouldn't have mattered.
No. Not the way this team is built. Yeah.
He had a 6 foot wide hole to run through with nobody there. He wasn't touched till he was 12 yards down the field.
Yeah.
You put him behind our offensive line, he doesn't pull off a run like that.
No.
You got to have somewhere to run.
But I tell you, this offensive line is decent at pass protection. Yeah, Ben's throwing the ball faster, but they're still decent at pass protection. So, I mean, but the problem is, Jeffrey Benedict brought this up today, is that the Steelers are kind of going back to what the problems they had last year is that teams are stacking the box. Now teams are stacking the box, not just to shut down the run, but to shut down the short pass.
Yeah.
Because the Steelers aren't trying to beat teams with the long pass. I'm still upset with Ben's interception. I'm not upset with Ben. Maybe. Depends. Because I don't have the inside information for this. I'm not upset with the line because, like I said, Sweat he half rushed, never got to contact, and waited to bat down the ball. I'm mad at when you've got the ball and you're down by 3, and your first play from the 25-yard line is going to be throwing to receiver running towards the sideline at the line of scrimmage.
I thought it was behind.
He might have. No, I'm being generous, saying that it was no more than at the line of scrimmage. So, yeah, that's something.
We're 3rd and 7 and throw a 1-yard pass and expect the receiver to get the other 6 yards.
Yeah. When teams are playing up.
That's okay once in a while, but we're doing that every time.
Yes.
The odds.
And it's funny. I know you hated that draw play. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't expecting the Steelers to do it. And when's the best time to try to do something like that? When teams aren't expecting. The problem was it was on 3rd and 16. Even if you busted for 8 yards, you're still going to punt. Might have been 3rd and 12. I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the draw play deep in our own end.
Yeah.
I called that, by the way.
Yeah.
I turned to Kyle and said, I looked at the formation. I said, this is going to be a delayed handoff.
Yeah.
And it was. And it went nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're still going with this. We're still got a lot to talk about. I'm going to throw a crazy notion out to you.
Okay.
And our buddy Wes, haven't seen him in there tonight, but I haven't really been paying attention to the live chat. He is going to throw a fit about this one. He really is.
Okay.
And here's why. If the Steelers are going to be that committed to passing the ball, when James Conner's not there, it needs to be Jalen Samuels.
Yep.
Because at least he's the bigger receiving threat.
Yep.
You know, people were questioning why in the world on 3rd and 1 at the goal line, if you're going to throw the ball, you're going to try to throw it to not just your tackle eligible, but a tackle that literally came off the COVID-19 list that day.
You know what he looked like when they threw him that ball?
He tripped over. He looked like me, tripped over his own feet.
He looked like an offensive lineman trying to catch football.
Yes.
As soon as the ball left Ben's hand,
Yeah.
his feet got stuck in quicksand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I fell down.
Yeah. I mean, that's not someone who's used to doing those things, and I mean, and then people were like 4th and 1. We'll get back to this because this was another part of the perfect storm that I haven't done. The other thing to stack it up on that 4th and 1 play from their own 26, and they throw a longer pass to Anthony McFarland, who has a whole whopping 5 receptions on the year. And not only that, being a rookie, I would have rather seen someone like Jalen Samuels in that spot simply because Jalen Samuels has enough rapport with Ben Roethlisberger. If the defense changes, they can look at each other and know how to change the route.
Yeah.
Ben had no choice but to run the route. And it was there. It was there. You can't say it wasn't there. They were confused. Some people want to know, why did they wait for the linebacker to get there? Because Ben likes to get the read. They were confused. It was the right setup. It just wasn't executed. Now, let's get back to that situation because I talked about it last night on the post game. 26-yard line, 4th and 1, tie game. Did I say 26? It was 28-yard line. 28-yard line. Because it would have been a 46-yard field goal because you had 18. Used to be 17, but now they go 8 yards deep for some reason. So you were looking at a 46-yard field goal. What did you think when that came up before they did anything? What was your thought? Did
Honestly,
you think kick or go?
I didn't blame them for going. I actually was like, oh, they're going to go. They're going to go here.
I almost typed it on Twitter that they need to go here because you can't bank on the 46-yarder.
I thought they're going to go here. Boy, I wish Boz wasn't hurt.
Yes. Well, and that's the other perfect storm. No Chris Boswell, because I brought it up. There was some reports. I'm pretty sure when I went back and checked, I'm pretty sure it was Dale Lawley that was reporting that Wright was coming up short on 50-yarders in warmups. Now, warmups is when you should be able to boot them much further because you don't got to rush. You're not worried about a lot of timing and everything. So when he said that before the game started, I was already at the mindset of the Steelers have to get to the 20 to kick a field goal. I was already had in my mind, got to be to the 20-yard line to kick a field goal. And they were at the 28.
They were going to let him.
They were
going to let him kick from 40 in.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think it's their fault. And some people want to blame Tomlin, and people were still upset. You got to kick that field goal. Then you weren't paying attention. You didn't know what was going on in the game. You didn't know. And you're like, well, why didn't they have a better kicker? Do you want to know why? Because so many kickers are on other teams' practice squads. They're all on other teams' practice squads because everyone's trying to keep 2 kickers in case something happens to one of theirs. Yep. And you're like, well, why don't you just poach one off of their practice squad? Because in order to get them for the Steelers to use in place of Boswell, you have to bring him to our practice squad first, because you can't just go poach him for the game because he would never clear COVID protocol. So in order to have him, you need to have him already on the practice squad, and you can't sign practice squad to practice squad. You had to go get someone off the street. That's what they were.
It was. I mean,
yeah. So, and I just saw I saw my name, so I looked at it. Okay. This was from Black and Gold Goggles. He said, Dave, I agree with you. The coach talked about it before the game and what the range is based on how they're kicking the football.
Yep.
It's 101. And because I said this in the post game, when I first was starting out as a high school coach, my thing with and even when I was the head freshman coach and everything with the varsity team, until I eventually volunteered, if I wasn't volunteering to be their main scout, when I was with the varsity team, I was always with the kickers pregame. That's what I did. I was with them, and it was my job to tell the coach, hey, if you're going, they can kick. Like, you got from this distance, this way, this distance, that way. Based on win and everything else. And also would say, for tonight, put it on the right hash, put it on the left hash, try to get it in the middle, anything's like that. So every game, and it wasn't the same distance every game, even with the same kicker. It wasn't.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to pull up, Mark Tome says, stupid thing that hurt. Why sign if you can't kick from 40? So dumb. That was last night.
Yeah.
Was
there someone else that they were going to be able to get in last week that was going to be able to kick for more than 40? I don't know. Well, let's just say it's not that he couldn't kick for 40. Now, do you also want to know the truth? If it was 4th and 12 at the 28-yard line, you try the long field goal with him anyway.
Yeah. You're playing an odds game.
Yes. I mean, and that's the thing. If Coach Tomlin puts the kicker out there in 4th and 1, 46-yarder, and he kicks it wide, or even worse, comes up short on a 46-yarder, that would have been really embarrassing, and he never would have kicked in the NFL again. If that comes out, if that happens, do you know what we're all saying today? Why in the world wouldn't they go for it on 4th and 1? Okay. I don't blame him. I don't blame him for that decision. I don't.
And we were in the open, and we were going towards the open end, which is the tough end to kick at.
The tough end to kick at. Not as tough as it used to be, but it's still tougher than the closed end. And he was coming up short. At the report pregame, he was coming up short from 50. If I recall right, I could be off. I might be off. And maybe my distances are off, but he was wild. So we need to take a break. I just looked at how long we've been going because we just missed game because it just happened yesterday. We'll put a bow on a few things, and then we'll start to roll into parallels from this game to now talk about what's coming up here in week 14. So click over to part 2 if you're here with us on YouTube or on Facebook. And we are back, Pittsburgh Show part 2. I am Dave. As always, is my big bro, Rich. Rich, what else do you want to talk about from this Washington game that we just summed up? We're talking about, stacking too many problems. There were too many problems short. They couldn't overcome all of them.
The 4th down holding call on TJ Watt.
Yeah.
He held. Okay.
And he didn't need to.
That's the problem. We had it covered.
But he didn't know the guy had it covered behind him.
2 guys waiting to cover that back coming out in that case. We had that play beat anyway. But TJ didn't know that because he can't see behind him.
Yeah.
And I know he did, I don't blame him. He wanted to hit the guy, knock the guy, get him off his route. But when that arm hooked, what could you do?
Yeah, I remember back from my coaching days.
You're really going back to
I am going back to this. No, because we called it, for high school, we called it a 5-2. So you had the 3 defensive linemen, you had your 2 outside linebackers or defensive ends, whatever you wanted to call them. But I remember the coach talking to him. He's like, hey, this is what you got to do. Okay. When there's a tight end there, he's like, this is what he says. He's like, kick him in the nuts, knock him off of feet. And the first part of that was how he wanted them lined up. He wanted their inside foot lined up to the middle of the tight end. So if he were to kick his foot, that's where he would hit him. And then the other thing was you always knock them off their feet, meaning don't ever let the tight end get a free release.
Yeah.
Always get a lick on him, because yes, you might think you're going to get after the quarterback, but by you not hitting him, he's coming off the line. And that's the thing. That was, and I can't remember if it was a running back or if it was a tight end or what it was there that TJ's like, I better not let him just get out there. I should hit him. And he thought about it a split second late. He would have been better off going at the quarterback. You're talking about a field goal there. No, that wasn't a field goal. That was 4th down. Because that was 4th down. The Steelers would have had the ball right there with the big stop. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. And the thing is, there's so many of those things. People wanted to blame TJ Watt. I saw some people like, TJ Watt cost us the game by trying to scoop and score and not falling on the ball. Well, yes, he could have tried to scoop and score. But you know what? The Steelers got the ball on a punt after that anyway. So it's not like they went down and scored on that drive. I'm pretty sure I remember that correctly. But that would have been a big turnover right there. But you also got to remember, you're like, oh, that didn't go the Steelers' way. Well, there was a no call on a pass on a fair catch interference, which they said he was blocked into the guy. Don't know how that happens when they're 5 yards apart. That's, and I'll be honest with you, if the Steelers don't recover that, they might have thrown a flag out there after.
He was blocked and knocked that direction.
Yeah. But not into him.
Correct.
Yeah. And
he kept going and ran into him. I don't know how that.
The way they always state it is it's the defender's job to be out of the way for the guy playing the ball. If the guy's still got to run forward to catch the ball, you can't be in his way if you're trying to stand in front of him. He has to be able to get to the ball.
Right.
And as long as he's going towards the ball, because people are like, well, why don't you use that to your advantage and just run into the guy? Well, what if the ball's not that way? Then you can't do that. But he was going for the ball. But luckily, it looked like they had recovered it. But nope, Sean Davis swooped in and grabbed it. So that was one thing that really went the Steelers' way. But then there was a whole lot of other stuff that didn't. Coach Tomlin was very interesting today with his last question at the press conference. They asked him about the play right before the half. He's like, I knew they were wrong. They didn't owe me explanation. They were wrong. I knew they were wrong. And I was trying to tell them how they were wrong. Okay. You don't stop the clock to get the other ball. That's why, and they don't always kick. They don't always kick the kicking ball. If you're talking about a hurry up situation, they will kick the regular ball. Mm-hmm. The thing is the kickers don't get the advantage there because they don't know that they're kicking the regular ball. So they couldn't have already worked it the way they wanted it to be, because you're thinking you're not going to have that ball. But they will run the play with the regular ball if it's because of a timing issue. When Alex Smith, when the referee called for it and took the ball off the field, it's not his job to stop the clock. It's his job to get the other ball. And if they can't get the other ball, that's their fault. That's
because each team has their own kicking ball.
Yeah.
So it's up to Washington to get that ball out onto the field if that's what they're wanting.
And why did they not get the ball out on the field? Because the referee was calling for the ball from Alex Smith.
Right.
So yeah, you say it was a wily veteran move, but you know what? It shouldn't have been. It only worked because the officials screwed it up.
Oh,
and it was a gutsy move because guess what? If they don't stop the clock, then they stopped the clock and restarted it and everyone stood around and ran down to 0. Why'd they say, oh, we shouldn't have restarted it? No, you should have never stopped it in the first place. And it's funny because at the time I'm like, you know what? Whoop-de-doo, the 3 points, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but that's kind of also the mindset of the Steelers. I felt that they had the whole game that's like, yeah, well, we'll be able to. And no, they weren't able to. And it was kind of a perfect storm. I wanted to go back and look this stat up, but it's so difficult to actually find. I want to know the last time, if ever, a team has played a game on 5 days rest where the other team had more than 7. Every time they schedule teams to play Thursday on a short week, there's not one team that's playing Monday and one team that's playing Sunday. They make them even. They don't even do it to where one team played if they have a special Saturday game or something. That's just the way they do it. So What happened here was Washington got the extended rest. The Steelers are playing teams coming off of buys. They've done it several times this season. They had to do it both against the Ravens against the Ratbirds the first time they played them and the Bengals. They both came off of buys, and the Steelers beat them both. The difference was it was a team coming off extended rest when the Steelers had super short rests. The super short rest hurt them. And yet, there's another team playing tonight. They decided to give them another day.
Yeah.
Why'd they get the other day? I hate to say it, and I know why it was. They wanted the Steelers and Bills to have the same amount of rest going into the game next Sunday night. That's probably why. But at the same time, and would the Steelers have been in a tough spot if they were playing Tuesday and had to play the Bills next Sunday? Absolutely. Would Steelers fans complain if that meant they lost to the Bills? Absolutely. But I think if the Steelers had one more day, they had a much better chance of winning that game last night. But they should have won it anyway.
They should have.
They should have won anyway. So let's
Coulda
move on.
and shoulda.
Yeah. So one of the most concerning things, I originally said, nope, spread's too big. I'm picking the football team to cover the spread. And I changed my mind. I changed my mind because the Steelers had a poor offensive performance against the Ravens. And what did I expect? I expected the bounce back. What did I really not take into play?
That we were going to get more of the same.
The short rest.
Yeah.
But even on the short rest, I did not expect the same. I didn't expect the drops. I didn't expect the drops to be the same, if not more. And I'm throwing this out there. You're going to see a lot of different numbers on how many drops there were because there is no set statistics of drops in NFL. When people were saying this team has the most drops, that's on their own judgment. The NFL doesn't do stats based on judgment. Can you think of any other stats? I mean, of course, penalties are based on judgment, but I mean, they don't say, oh, well, and that's why they don't give receivers credit for their DPI yards because it's based off of a judgment call. Someone might get interfered even worse and they're not called for it, and then they don't get those yards. They don't count. The NFL doesn't officially keep track of drops. So you look at the drops, it's based on someone's interpretation. And I saw anything between 5 and 10 last week against the Ravens. I personally counted that I would have classified at least 7. Now, the one drop that people were frustrated with Juju on third down, was that on the opening drive or was that on the second drive? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was, what's that?
Second drive.
Yeah, I knew it was one of the two early where they didn't do anything. There was a penalty called. I'm pretty sure it was it holding? It was on something on the offense. And that they declined because Juju dropped the ball. If Juju catches the ball, he's not going to get a reception anyway because they're going to call back for the penalty.
Right. Yeah.
So that one, but hey, who's to say they wouldn't have converted on third and forever and a half? Just one of those things. So a little bit frustrated. Steelers Pittsburgh says, Oracle, you expected the receivers to catch the ball. Yes, I did. After a week of not catching the ball, I expected them to catch the ball against the football team. Did I expect that maybe they could have got worn down a little bit? Yeah, but I'm like, the Washington football team had not beaten anybody that had more than 3 victories before they beat the Steelers. They had been playing better. I'm still trying to figure out why in the world. Was it because they were worried about coming back from the injury or what? But from what I've seen this season, Alex Smith is the best quarterback play they've had all season.
Oh, yeah.
So by far. So I don't know why there was ever a question of not playing him. So it's just kind of crazy. So therefore, I'm very leery going into week 14. I expected the bounce back from the Ravens game. Didn't get it. Are you expecting a bounce back against the Bills?
I don't know what I'm expecting now.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect. And I'm like, oh, well, you still got a great defense. Is Hayden going to play? Is Nelson really going to be back? Coach Tomlin's saying that, he's hoping he's going to be back this week, but he's got to get on the field and show that he can do it. See that the knee was good to go in practice and everything. The reports are Spillane is not out for the season, but he's probably going to miss multiple games.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that I don't know what to even expect from the Steelers.
We didn't get an official on Spillane. I'm going to guess we have a sprained MCL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got reports from people, but that's really it. Yeah. It's just one of those things that it's like, I don't know. I don't know between the injury. I mean, do you think if Chris Boswell plays in that game at full health that the Steelers win?
I think the chances were better, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because Washington getting that field goal at the end would have been to tie and not take the lead. And when the Steelers got the ball back when they threw the interception, it would have been, tied and not trailing. And
right.
Just
not trailing and needing a touchdown would have been tied and needing a field goal.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that when they had the interception, Yeah, that it just would have changed a bunch of different things. I said it after the Steelers defeated the Ratbirds in that dirty city down east of here. If you've ever been there, it's a dirty city. I'm sorry. Pittsburgh is a much more glorious city. That the most difficult game they had left on their schedule was going to Buffalo. Still believe it now. That this is one of, if not their most difficult game they have remaining. Do you agree, disagree, indifferent?
I probably agree.
Yeah. I mean, the only teams through 12 games that the Steelers have played that have 9 wins will be the Buffalo Bills coming up this week and the Cleveland Browns.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have, record-wise, at this moment, those are the best 2 teams that they have that they either have or will face. So, yeah. And it's funny because Brad says Cleveland is hot. But you know what's crazy? Cleveland jumps up to an enormous lead on Tennessee, almost blows it, and everyone wants to talk about how awesome Cleveland is. They followed the same script as the Steelers. That the Steelers who jumped out on them early, let them get back in it, close at the end, and everyone talks about how awful it was that the Steelers let them back in it. It just a question of narrative. Okay. Kelvin Colbert Sr., 5-star matchup because we're in it. It is. So, and I did click on this one by mistake, but I'll bring it up real quick. Josh Allen, the best quarterback we faced this year. I don't know. Who do you think the best quarterback is that the Steelers have faced this year? Allen's streaky. If you really want to know
but he's been a lot more consistent this year than last.
Yeah.
He reminds me
up there.
He reminds me of a bit, right?
Who's that?
Oh, he's a young Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people. He was Wyoming, right? Was he the one out of Wyoming quarterback? He was quarterback for Wyoming.
I don't know. He's a quarterback. I don't follow college football.
Yeah, because I was thinking he was someone that originally they thought maybe the Steelers should get, because kind of a Roethlisberger replacement, and then he just shot up the draft boards and was like, "Yeah, there's no chance." Yeah. So we'll have to see. Lamar Jackson's a good quarterback, just not as good when he plays the Steelers. And I say Deshaun Watson's a pretty good quarterback. One of the things from this past week, I said Steelers gave up 20 points in the second half.
Yeah, that was rough. 20
points in the second half. The most points they'd given up in a half all year was 21 to Houston in the first half, but then they shut them out. The 20 points in the second half, I think they gave up 18 to Denver, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
But that's 4 scores. They gave up 4 scores in the second half, which they hadn't done. So, yeah. So that's pretty interesting. What else do you have coming into this game? I'm going to kind of ask you this because this was something that Jeff brought up on Let's Ride. First of all, I'm going to say this. This isn't what Jeff brought up, but I'm going to say this. Where do you put Buffalo's defense compared to Washington's?
Oh, not as good.
This year. Yeah, not as good.
Not as good.
I don't think they're going up against
Buffalo's defense this year is not as good as it was last year.
Yeah. Yes. So there's that.
Good. It's good.
It's good, but not as good as Washington. Okay. You got to look out for White, the corner, man. He just finds the ball. But I would say Buffalo's offense is more dynamic. So there's that. But what Jeff said on Let's Ride last week, he's like, are these games more about their opponent, or is it really more come down to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, it really comes down to which Pittsburgh Steelers team we see, honestly. If we see the Steelers in the last 2 games, we lose going away, probably double digits. If we see the Pittsburgh Steelers team from earlier in the season, we we're there. Yeah, yeah.
Is it the team that played the Bengals or the team that played the football team?
Right.
Yeah. So, hey, Felicia had a good question here I want to bring up. I haven't been looking at all of the live chat, but I've caught a couple things. She says, she raises her hand. That's what caught my attention.
Yeah.
Hey, Felicia.
Hey, Felicia.
How do you feel about the comment Mike Tomlin told Chase Young on Washington? Do you think he low-key told Chase that he's scouting him like Minka in a joking manner, but it's not a joke? Did you hear about this? Did you see this?
Oh, I saw this.
That he said to him, he's like, hey, I'd love to have a guy like you. I just got to lose 14 or 15 games in order to get you, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Loved it.
Yeah, which is kind of saying, hey, I would love to coach you. Interesting, but
it is.
That's not going to be a guy. You're not going to be able to trade for him like they did with Minka, and then you're not going to be able to afford him if he's on the open market. But I like that, Felicia. I like that you brought that up. That was one of those things. So, Rich, are you ready to anything more about this game with the Bills you want to talk about before we get into your prediction?
Not so much this game, but just something overall.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed something in the past 4 or 5 weeks that's missing from our offense that was there in the beginning of the year?
How about the jet sweeps and the around handoffs?
Yeah, where did all the motion and the jet sweeps and everything go? Because we were clicking better when we had some of that stuff.
Overall,
we've tossed it aside.
But then you've tossed it aside because, oh, wait, we got back into the game by Ben going no huddle and throwing shorts and doing this and drawing up plays in the dirt, as they say.
Okay, that worked. We didn't do that yesterday either.
No, because what I'm saying, because that's not sustainable to work all the time. And that's what Washington was trying to take away. That's why they had all their guys in the box, is because they were trying to take away the short passes. So, yeah, lots of stuff. I mean, it's you got to stay ahead of the curve. You can't do something and keep doing it for such a long time that people are going to figure out how to stop it and not be ready for the next move. Coach Tomlin said it himself. It's chess, not checkers. And honestly, even in checkers, you've got to anticipate the moves. If you've ever played checkers, which I have young kids, so I have to play checkers. So, but chess is even more like that. In other words, chess is saying that there's more moving pieces, and you've got to see ahead of what's coming. If you know things are changing, I saw someone, I can't remember if it was on Twitter, I can't remember if it was one of our live chats, I can't remember. But someone says maybe they have some other good stuff, but they're not wanting to bust it out until they have to, because then it'll be on tape. Well, you don't want to wait too long, because right now silver lining, if you're going to lose a game, this was the game to lose because it's a non-conference game.
Correct.
You still were the number 1 seed. But the problem is, by losing this game, you don't have a lot of confidence in winning all the next 4. Do you?
No. Do not expect now I'm like, I do not expect the number 1 seed from the Steelers. If we get it, okay, but now I'm not expecting it.
Yeah.
Until we lost, I was expecting it.
Yeah. I'm just afraid that the Steelers are going to do it to me again. This is my 3rd season.
No. Let's get the predictions.
No, at behind the steel curtain.
I know, but I know where you're going.
What? That every time I start talking about the Steelers making the playoffs is when they don't. Dude, do you know what happened to me on Sunday? Jeff's like, you got to get the article ready. So I'm like, I wouldn't even put it on the dashboard. That's where our articles go. I wrote it up somewhere else. Got to get the article ready, because not only are the Jets up on the Raiders, the Texans are inside the 5-yard line down by 6 at the very end of the game. If either the Colts or the Raiders lose, then the Steelers had their playoff spot locked in. And, it's not that they're not going to make the playoffs. There's too many crazy things are going to happen. But you don't like me even talking about it. You're mad at me. But you know what? I'm going to say it anyway.
I'll tell you right now, your children are going to hate you. Because if it gets near Christmas and you've talked about this and it's going bad,
Yeah.
you might as well just tell them they're not getting anything from.
No, I told Jeff I'm not doing this article anymore.
I'm pulling their Christmas presents.
I am not preparing this article anymore. I'm not preparing the article. Jeff had told me to have the article ready yesterday for that game, with the Steelers winning. And I'm like, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not. That article will start from scratch at the moment it happens. It's not going to have a pre-write, because every time I pre-write about the Steelers making the playoffs, they don't. That's never happened since I've been behind the steel curtain. So that's crazy. So
I knew where you were going with that.
Andrew says, Dave, you need to do an article on what it would take for the Steelers to not make the playoffs.
There you go.
I need to have that pre-written. That's what you're talking about right there.
Good call, Andrew.
So,
I like
that one, Andrew.
Like that a lot.
I'm putting that on the dashboard before this week. Okay. Rich, it's up to you. I'm glad I don't have to make my prediction for 2 more nights, because I'm really torn on what to do. It's funny. Jeff told me last night, get the article ready to run, Tuesday morning, like we always do, of the opening odds. I got it ready, but there was some things that were missing, so I had to finish it this morning. The odds yesterday were the Steelers by 2. Then when I went to go to write the article this morning, it was Steelers by 1.5. By the 10 minutes before the article was supposed to be published, the odds were even. I said, Jeff, I'm pulling it off. I'm changing it. I'll publish it when it's done. Okay. I'm going to run a different article tomorrow, because it's now, last I saw, 2.5 points in favor of the Buffalo Bills. So that's the way the line has moved because of everything going on. So what is your score prediction for Sunday night in Buffalo in primetime against no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills?
All right. You know what? Here's the deal. I will give a prediction tonight.
Okay.
I typically do my best to hold the same prediction for the staff predictions later in the week.
But you're telling right now that you have.
I'm telling you right now that I might change it later in the week. I'm doing this coming off of where we were yesterday.
Now, hold on just a second. I'm just reminding the live chat, if you put your score in there now, I will not read it until I ask for scores, where you see the word scores in there. I'm letting you know, because the Facebook audience, they might not be familiar with how that works. When you see it come up from us, then you'll know that I will be looking so I can put them up there. So you have the right to change it. What do you got?
26-20 in favor of the Bills.
26-20 in favor of the Bills. You are going Buffalo 26,
correct.
Steelers 20.
Now,
okay.
Part of the reason, a couple big things that could change that. Okay. If it looks like Steven Nelson's coming back, yep, that'll change it some.
Yep.
If for some reason, too, Joe Hayden would clear the concussion protocol and play, he and Nelson both, definitely changes it.
Yeah.
So, is Connor back? Is Pouncey back? I want some more info on but I'm wanting some more info on our players, and that's the reason why I might change things. Okay, I'm basing this off of yesterday's performance and where we sat with players coming off that game.
Okay. So I've got a couple super chats. I have not put a score up yet. I haven't asked for it yet in the live chat, because we got a couple super chats. Chris Grant, $2 into the tip jar. Thank you very much. Says O-line swap, Al, Dotson, Pouncey, DeCastro, and Filer to get a 100-yard rush. I don't know that that's the answer, because something that Jeffrey Benedict brought up is Alejandro Villanueva, who is having a very good year, although some people might not see it, especially when it comes to pass blocking, is a very different style of player to play next to. And it's taken Matt Filer a long time to get used to it, and he's finally getting used to it. It's just not a big run thing.
I know, but I'll tell you what, I saw it twice yesterday, okay? when they try to have Filer pull and lead the running back, nope. Filer's too slow getting there.
No. There was another thing that you realized. Do you know part of the reason why Filer was too slow?
Why?
He was having to go around J.C. Hassenauer, who was getting blown off the ball. A guard can only pull. As you know, if the offensive line is getting moved back, he's got to pull deep, or else he's just going to run into him, and then you're royally stuffed.
But I'll say this: Pouncey then must not be doing much better this year, because that's been Filer's issue all year. Running backs.
I'm not saying it's not all the time, but have
to slow. Our running backs have to slow down and wait for him to get around there, and that's just killing us.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Here's another one: $5. Brandon Perlis, I don't know. $5 in the tip jar. Thank you very much. Do you think the Steelers should keep handing the ball off to McFarland to see if the kid can break anything? You know, it's funny though. That's one thing that the Steelers are doing with the run game. If it's not working, they don't pound it into the ground, because you know what we said in years past. If the run game's not working, why do you keep handing the ball off 25 times and only getting 23 yards? Okay, if it's not working, you should just stop. You know, which they have been doing. So I don't know. And honestly, I don't know that it's McFarland to just do that, because he constantly seems like he's going to break it and trips over his own feet. So I don't know if it's any of these running backs just need more to get going. So right now we're at the very end. We don't have much time. So I'm throwing the score thing out in the live chat, because I'm sure some people already have theirs loaded up and just waiting for me to put it out there to hit enter. So if you throw a score out there, I'm going to assume, unless you say otherwise, that you're having the Steelers victorious. So you got to make sure you tell me otherwise. Black and Gold Goggles says Steelers 24, Bills 17, because his bold prediction.
You missed one right before it.
Is the Steelers will actually catch the ball. Then Andrew Wilbar says Steelers 30, Bills 26. Had this game as a loss since the preseason, as did I. But they're hoping. My biggest thing isn't as much of giving up 26 points as can the Steelers score 30, because they don't seem to be that way right now. Okay. Ryan O'Toole says 21-20, and he's not sure who gets the 21.
That's funny. That's almost what what
picked the score. You just weren't
for my
sure
prediction. That's almost what I put, Ryan. That's fantastic.
Yeah. 27-24 Steelers from Christopher. Then we have Brandon that says Steelers 20-19. Mark Tobin 24-20 Steelers. Lifelong fan 07 says they bounce back 24-17 Steelers. Steven, I'm just going to leave it at that because I'll screw up the last name. 27-20 Bills, hoping he's wrong. Okay. Bill Davis says the Bills 37, Steelers 23. That 37's a lot. I don't know that the Steelers defense will give up that much. Yeah. But I'm not saying you're crazy for picking a Bills win, because I'm not sure what I'm doing. Okay. No one 28-17 Buffalo. Mostos. I don't know if it's Mostos or not. 42-38 Steelers. Bills defense sucks, so I think the Steelers get the run game going. For 42 points, that'd be crazy. Okay. Kelvin Colbert Sr., 27-23 Steelers. The Prodigal 24-17 Bills. Tony's got 31-27 Steelers, with the offense getting back on track. I thought the offense was going to get back on track this past week, but they got a little bit more prep this time. Okay. Tristan says 33-33 Steelers. Bold prediction. How can it be Steelers if it's 33-33? Dallas says Bills 31-21. Solarverse 27-17 Steelers. Okay. He mistyped it. That's what it was. 33-30. Okay, I got you the right one this time. Trenton says 24-10 with a Pittsburgh win. Dusk Thunder 30-28 Steelers, because they get 3 picks. That's another thing. That was only the second game all season the Steelers haven't had a takeaway. Okay. You see any score predictions? Mine's kind of frozen right now. I know it's going to jump. Do you got anything for me, or is that pretty much our predictions? which is good because we are over our allotted time.
Yeah.
Wait, I saw a couple more here. Okay. Todd says 31-14 Bills. That's a blowout. Okay. And Occam's Ox, 21-20 Steelers on a last-second field goal. Well, that means they have 18 going into that. That's crazy. That'll be interesting. Okay. So there we go. And then Josh Hawkins says 24-21. Pittsburgh has less than 3 drops from the receivers in Ebron. Okay. So that's some interesting stuff. Rich. Once again, this isn't as much about the Bills as I feel as it is about the Steelers. Do I think the Steelers show up against better opponents? Yes, I do. Do I think the Steelers can bounce back after a bad performance? Yes, I do. But I expected those things this week, and I didn't get them. So, to me, the definition of insanity is expecting the same thing and having a different result. I'm hoping I get my different result.
I think the Steelers I knew Washington was going to be tough.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially defensively. Did the Steelers spend a little too much time looking at their 4-7 record and just thinking, the NFC East is the way I like to call them, same as Jeff, the NFC least?
Yes.
Hey,
and like I said last night, Mike Tomlin's never gone a season where he swept his NFC opponents.
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're going to find out come Sunday.
Yeah.
We're going to find out we're going to find out a lot more about what this team is made of.
Yes. And before we do, make sure you are checking out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Hoping we have a Vertex tomorrow. We'll see if we can get that done, where Jeffrey and I are looking at, giving up 10 receptions for 70 yards to a running back this past week. Various other things as you get ready for that Bills game. It's always your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And of course, we'll have our podcasts coming at you. We're back on schedule. We had 2 tonight because the hangover was earlier because of the Monday game. We are back on a regular schedule for our podcast from this point on. First time in a long time. So you'll have Know Your Enemy tomorrow night on live on YouTube and Facebook. We'll have the preview Thursday, Brunch with Tony Saturday, a late post game Sunday after a late Sunday night game. You'll still have your audio only stuff coming out for you. You've got Let's Ride Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Live Mike was this morning. I'll have a Stat Geek Thursday. Then you've got the Touchdown Under. Touchdown Under. Definitely got that coming Saturday. Then you got the various different little shows thrown in there we already had Mike Tomlin's press conference wrap up. You'll get injury report ones from Jefferson. You'll get a fact or fiction, a rooting guide from Brian Anthony Davis, some various other things. Just make sure if you're listening to us in audio form that you subscribe to the channel so you get all that stuff and you'll always have it there. So that's what we have coming at you from behind the steel curtain. We'll see what happens on Sunday. That's all we can do. Right, Rich? That's
right.
They're got to take the field. You got to see the Steelers rebound. All the talk of this undefeated season is out the window. The distraction is gone. You need to get back to playing good football. Stay focused on what you need to do. Let's see what they do Sunday night.
Can't wait.